Welcome to another episode of 30 Minutes with DailyStrings.com. This is your host, June Ramli. Our guest today is Kuala Lumpur-based Yasmin Mahmood. Yasmin has a very highly distinguished career spanning 3 decades, during which time she has worked with various technology giants, including Hewlett Packard and Dell. In 2006, she became Microsoft Malaysia's managing director, and in 2014 was appointed CEO of Malaysian Digital Economic Corp Sdn Bhd MDEC, and was instrumental in the region's digital economic transformation. He also served in various non-executive roles in prominent establishments, including the National Postal and Courier Company, POS Malaysia, as chairperson and much more. Apart from being the chair of Heriot-Watt University Malaysia Board of Directors, Yasmin is also the managing partner of FutureReady Consulting. Without further ado, let's invite Yasmin to the show and ask her how she managed to ace all those high-powered roles with various multinational companies and more. Hello, Yasmin. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, June. I'm good, thank you. And how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. So let's dive right into the question. So, what was the first tech job you ever aced?
Well, my first tech job was to be a systems analyst because I graduated in computer science and applied maths from University of New South Wales of Australia. Yay! Proud of my alumni. I became a programmer, analyst programmer, but I tanked that job. I was really a horrible programmer. So that was my first tech job. But the first job that I actually aced was when I worked with Hewlett Packard, and it was when I went in to be in marketing role, in a sales and marketing role in Hewlett Packard. So I combined my passion of doing sales and marketing with that of my background, which is in technology. So that was my first tech job that I aced in, which was as an executive in Hewlett Packard. Was it hard for me to break into the industry? Well, the industry was very nascent at that time. I was one of the pioneers, at least in Malaysia. There were hardly any women in the industry, so there was only me and one of my colleague then was actually a lady as well. So we were a team of girls in a company were dominated by men. So I was lucky in the sense that I had a buddy. I had a buddy. Her name is China, and she went on to become the managing director of IBM. And we were supporting each other. I'm not sure if China wasn't around, it would have been a lot lonelier. But to answer your question, yes, it was tough. But I guess after a while, I don't even realize that I was the only woman in a lot of things. I was the only woman in meetings. I was the only woman in conferences. So it came to a point where, I'm so used to being in a room of dark men in dark jackets. So when I go into a room and I see a burst of color from women, I get, oh, why? What? I get a bit disoriented. So yeah, it was tough, but you get used to it. And it toughened me up, I must say. It toughened me up.
Awesome. So, some people perceive working in STEM jobs as difficult and demanding. What would you say to young people considering a career in this industry?
Well, this is I know this is very prevalent. The fact that a lot of girls have a stigma against technology, against STEM, against science. So that's something that I must say I could be an outlier in that, because I fell in love with science the moment I saw those little people on TV and became curious about how that thing worked. So I think the curiosity, is something that got me into STEM. But it is, I think now, as I am a champion of advocating, women to get into STEM, especially young girls, I ask them to not think of STEM as an end, but think of STEM as a means to an end. And if you think about the fact that anything that you want to do in this world right now, any problem that you want to solve, science and technology is at the foundation of it. Science and technology can help. Of course, I'm not undermining the other elements of social sciences and the other elements of liberal arts. They're all important. But the foundation of science and technology as an enabler towards solving the world's problems right now cannot be overlooked. So look at it as a problem solving. You know, girls, I know that women and girls especially, they want to solve problems. And to think that if you want to solve a problem, you cannot solve it without having an element of science and technology behind it. So think about it that way. And you know, in my interaction, in my past involvement in advocating women and girls into technology, this is exactly how I had positioned it, and it worked. The moment you tell the girls, oh, you got to understand coding because you got to do this, and they get a bit turned off. But if you tell them that, you know what, you know, to build an a transformative agricultural system to support future of farming, you got to do a little bit of this. Then they will just have no qualm about doing it. So think about it that way. To answer your question, June, don't think about it as a STEM. Think about what is the problem that you want to solve. What is it that you want to do? What is the outcome that you want? And work backwards and use and think of STEM as a tool, as an enabler towards solving that problem.
So, all right. I wanted to ask you about Malaysian women and their working life. So, generally, Malaysian women, right, they tend to slow down in their careers, with some completely hanging the boots after marriage and children. So, with the emergence of remote work recently with COVID and everything, more of them can now enter the workforce. And Malaysia what do you think of like Malaysia finally being able to tap into this untapped resource?
I'm not sure whether it is just a Malaysia problem. I think it is somewhat a global problem where we find that women, there is a leakage. You know, women, you know, as especially as the higher you grow, higher you go, and there's a lot of reasons around it. It's around whether a choice. First of all, women always have choice. Women is empowered if you choose to stay at home. Women is empowered if you choose to go all the way up the corporate ladder or go all the way up to be an entrepreneur. So the key point is about the empowerment towards making that choice. Now, what is happening right now, and it already was starting even before COVID, but what COVID did was to really accelerate it. And the question is around no longer about work-life balance, but it's around work-life integration. So it's not about you work and you have a home and then you know, and then you try to balance the two. It's about integrating it. And how do you integrate it? We saw to a lot of extent, some, you know, through a lot of painful experience as well, but you know, people now have gotten the DNA for it, which is how do you integrate the two? And things like work from home, right? Things like freelance work. So, you know, you heard about this COVID, this whole phenomena around, it's called the Great Resignation. You know, it's not really, to me, it's not a great resignation. It's really a migration from a typical work environment of office work towards where you do a lot more of this gig economy, you know, the freelance kind of work, being an entrepreneur. So I think, you know, this is a phenomena that's going to continue. It will all go well for women because you're right. This is when you can really, you know, women do not have to make those tough choices anymore, but the tough choice is more about how do you make it work together. So any company, and I'm promoting this in companies that I sit on boards right now, any company needs to make sure that you no longer count on a workforce that is willing to come in and commit to your loyalty towards your company, being able to play by the rules of the company. It has shifted towards more of a freelance, towards more of a gig economy. So a company needs to be able to marry the two. You got to have a workforce that is, you know, a traditional workforce, but your company will need to have policies and programs that will also unleash and tap on a freelance or a you know, part-time kind of work. And this will even accelerate more as the new millennials, as the, you know, Generation Z comes into play, and the whole concept of the gigs, you know, it's no longer a job, it's no longer a career, but it's about pursuing what you love and pursuing what you want to do in bursts of assignments or gigs, as we call it. So yeah, and I think this will augur well for unleashing the power of women and empowering women to really do what you want to do.
Awesome answer. So I love it. So as Malaysia's most successful technology and business leader, did you face any challenges in the industry that is dominated? Because when you started your tech career, you were, like you said just now, you were sometimes you'll be the only one in the meetings. So how do you deal with your male colleagues? Like how do you get them to listen to you?
So I always say that if I were to describe my journey, I've always described it as climbing the corporate ladder in stilettos and a baby in tow. And all of the things that we talk about right now, things about stereotyping, things about bias, things about the Me Too movement. The Me Too about sexual harassment and all that. Yeah, I've been through all that. But there's a huge difference. Then it was a case where we got to suck it up. If you were to talk about it, if you talk about, pay inequality, if you talk about having bias, and I used to have a boss that comes and say that, because I've got two girls, really hardworking girls working for me, and I got to make sure I squeeze them dry because before they get married and they have babies, and then I can't count on them too much. So you have those kind of, and you're allowed, and what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to just stick it in and smile and be sporting about it, right? But now what has changed, and people always ask me, over 30 years, I have a lot of these women empowerment that I champion and so close to my heart. Has it really changed? So my question is that in some ways it's changed a lot. Yeah, it's changed because that boss of mine that said that would not have been able to get away with it right now. Now we are allowed to speak out about it. Now they know it's wrong. And now there's a realization that women in the workforce is an imperative. It is a business imperative. You don't support. I always say that I'm not a woman advocate because I'm a woman. I'm a woman advocate because I'm a leader. So that part has changed a lot. And I think that's a big significant change. However, you talk about the statistics, the percentage of women on boards, the percentage of women in the workforce is still so far lagging. So in that respect, a lot of things still hasn't changed. So did I go through all of those? Yes, I did go through all that. How did I overcome it? It was with strength and resilience and just a lot of practical things. I always say that to be considered, to be in a room of men and make sure that they're comfortable with you, because they're, after all, they're humans, right? Just to be comfortable with you, I've got to learn. I've got to talk about football. Thank God I love football, so that's always an icebreaker. I took off. I took on golf. So sports. Sports. Luckily, I'm a sports person. So you find these things to ice break it, and so you open the door. And but at the end of the day, it can only open the door. But once you're inside there, it's always this what just got to be. It's true. You got to be better than the guy next to you. You got to be better, and that's fine. That is to our advantage eventually.
Awesome. So there is a balance between a security of an existing job and the need to move on to new challenges and opportunities. So, sorry, I just wanted to say that moved a lot of careers, moved many times. So when do you think, do you feel it's the right time for you to leave a job? Because all your jobs are all high-powered jobs. So how do you tell yourself, okay, I should leave this role and move on to the next,
That's an interesting question. I've never thought about it from that. But okay, let me just share with you what happened. So I've been very driven, from because I came from an underprivileged. I came from a small village in Malaysia. My parents were teachers, and I wanted financial security. I wanted to take care of my family. So I was from young. I already had goals. I wanted to get a scholarship. I wanted to go study in university. I wanted to come back and work. I wanted to become a team leader. I wanted to become by a certain age. So I wanted to work for a multinational company. I wanted to be a general manager, and that was it. That was my end. The end of my this intense planning was to be a general manager for a multinational company. And I reached that before I was 30 years old. So there was a take. Then I said, what do I do next? Because what is it that what do you want to do next? So I was driven. I mean, and you always have to be driven. So the first drive for me was about financial security and success. And the second drive was about proving, it's about proving you can do it. So I was headhunted. Since I got the general manager role in this multinational, I was headhunted. And whether to make a decision, whether or not it is something that you should do or not. First of all, you got to understand where you want to be. What is it that you want to do? So I wanted to prove myself. I was very happy in Hewlett Packard, and I was headhunted to go into Dell. And I don't think about it. My bosses were very happy, and I was part of a leadership development program to uncover and develop future leaders. But the opportunity came in, and I took it on because I wanted to just prove to myself that I could do this job that was so intense. I mean, Dell is known to be a very intense organization. So I wanted to prove myself that I could do this job. And then eventually I was headhunted to go into Microsoft. Same thing. I was the first lady to be a managing director of Microsoft, the only second Malaysian to be the managing director of Microsoft. So I said, okay, let's see whether I can do it. So it's about challenging yourself. And when you challenge yourself, you grow. So to me, I'm always driven by proving that I can do something and challenging myself and also learning. If people always ask me, what is my superpower? And I think my superpower is just this passion to learn. So learn something new and to feel that I'm growing, because once you learn, you feel that you're growing. And that was the why I would make that move. And of course, the other part also is that somehow when you go through the whole process, you ask yourself these questions. You got to be able to rationalize. Before I make a decision, it's always the head and the heart that has to be aligned. Is you got to have all the takes, the pros and cons. I've got the list of yes and no's. But at the end of the day, you just have to go to bed with this question: should I make the move? And when you wake up, what was the first thing? What was your first thought? Is it the thought of, yeah, I should do it? Or is it the thought of, I don't think so? So, and you always have to also believe in your instincts. So, answer your question, Jude. Sorry for the long-winded way of getting it, but it's the head, the heart, and it must be aligned towards what you want to do with yourself. Money is important to me. Like I said, I came from underprivileged. I didn't come from a privileged background. So money is important to me, but I never negotiate based on money first. Money is always the last thing I negotiate. So the strategy is always to go in there and make them want you first, make them really want you, and of course make sure that you also want that job, right? And never, and I always say that it's not that I want to negotiate for it, but I want it to be fair. Money is important. The pay is important because I'm not rich, but I don't have the luxury of being able to say, I don't care about money. I care about money, but it's not everything. And more importantly, it shows how you value me. Right? And that is my test of you. How much do you value me? And this is not only about when you get into a job, but also when you negotiate for during annual performances, annual reviews, and all that, right? First of all, you got to make sure that you do a damn good job, and that you are being valued, and you are in the top 20% or top 10% quartile all the time. Then when that happens, then you know that you've got the negotiating. They don't want to lose you. That's the most important thing. That is your trump card. If you don't have the trump card, it's difficult to negotiate. Your trump card is that they don't want to lose you, right? And when that comes, you ask them, what is it? How much am I worth to you? And that gets them a bit unnerved. And I remember this is so. And I always tell this story especially to ladies, because ladies tend to not ask. Important to, I don't ask blatantly, but it's important to know that, hey, I want my worth. I remember this when I was very young. Not young, and I was in a multinational company. I was already a marketing manager. And my boss came to me and said, "Yeah, Yasmin, I've got a good news. I've given you a pay increase." And it was a reasonable, I think about 40%, 30%, 40% pay increase. And I was happy inside. But something inside me just said something like, maybe I'll just say that I'm not too happy. So I said that, thank you. So loudly, aloud, I said, thank you. But I must say I'm a bit disappointed. I wasn't. I just said, I must say I'm a bit disappointed. And I could see the face of my boss change. And 2 days' time, he came back and my salary was more than doubled because it went to a different plateau. So they promoted me to a different category. So from that time onwards, I knew that first you got to have a trump card, which is they must want you. So you must work really hard and you must really know what is it that they want, so that they become a valuable asset to the organization. And then you just sit back and you see what comes, because you've got the trump card. You must ask for it. You must know that is important to you, but it's not everything. So yeah. So I hope that answers it.
Yeah, it's a great answer. So, all right. You have been headhunted for roles numerous times. So, any tips on how candidates can approach these offers in terms of interviewing for them? Because when you're headhunted, right, you're in a job, you're happy and everything, and then suddenly this job comes in with a really good, salary and perks. So, what is the approach like?
So I do not go to I do not pursue every opportunity that I was headhunted for. You got to be very selective about it as well, because you don't want to also come across as somebody who is so fickle and who's not loyal. I was very loyal to the company that I was with. And I gave it my commitment, and I had very good relationship with every single one of them, even when I left. So I've always left because of a reason, and the reason is because of growth. It's not about money. It's never about money. It's about growth, but the growth opportunity. And that was consistent across the board. So if you read my CV, you would know that why I left, because when you get interviewed, you say, why did you leave that company? Why did you leave that company? And I look up to what were the reasons for them leaving the company. As I hire new people, right? I just came back from an interview just prior to this, from interviewing people, right? So you have got to be consistent about the reason. And if money is a reason, that was like, I stay away from those people. If money is the only reason why you move, then I think that is a big red flag for me. So it must be a reason as to why. And for me, it's always the growth. It's always the growth opportunity. It's always a bigger challenge.
Do you have any tips on how women should negotiate for their salaries? Should they always accept the first offer?
Like I said, I do not negotiate for my salary. Actually, I would make sure, like say, I have the trump card. That is that I want to be in the top 20% all the time, right? And make sure that you're a performer, and then you got to do your homework also. You got to understand whether you are underpaid. If you are if you do the same job, somebody in the same job, doing this and it's a performer, are you comparable? What should you be getting? And you must get your homework. And if you are fairly, if you are already fairly positioned and you are already well paid within the structure. I was very lucky to be in multinationals where I've always had that structure. And if you don't have that luxury, then you must pause for the rationale as to why. At least do comparison, with somebody who is equally, in the same function and, in the same performance category. At least have that parity, have that comparable. Are you being, paid equal to that next person? That's the first position. If you are, then the rest is how much can you push a bit more. So that's when you say, you just want a bit more, you want a bit more, So, and that is just about, don't be too mercenarious about it. Be gracious about it, but you should always try to push for a little bit more. Once the baseline is that you're fairly well, you are comparable for your role and for your performance, then after that, you just try to push for a little bit more. Always, push a little bit, not too much, a little bit.
Awesome. So I read in a New Straits Times interview that you actually ditched a scholarship with the education ministry. You broke the contract actually, and to pursue a corporate career. And I think in that interview you mentioned that you had to pay a debt of 70,000 ringgit to break that
Yeah, a
contract.
bond,
So,
yeah, bond, yes, yes.
yes. So
Because of
some
money.
yeah, I know it's a lot of money. Some people have a hard time ditching a scholarship to pursue a path unknown, but you did just that, the opposite. So, for some people who are in such a crossroad right now, what would be your advice to them?
Well, courage. I mean, until today, I don't know how I make that kind of courageous decision. But it was such a defining moment in my life. I mean, if I had not done that, then I wouldn't be where I am. But the decision was the fact that I knew I've always driven, like I mentioned, I was driven about about being successful. And from young, I've always had this vision of success as having 3 white phones on my desk and carrying a briefcase, waiting in the lobby to go up in a high-rise building. I mean, I don't know how that vision came about, but I've always had that as a definition of success. So, and when I came back, the computer science and applied maths was really sought after. It was, like I say, it was a up and coming industry. And so I just make that decision to say that, okay, if I were to break free from it, and I knew some people break free of scholarships and they don't pay, but I don't believe in that. I mean, you must pay. I mean, this is the first rule in life, that is, if you owe something, you pay up, right? There's values in life. So I knew that that I wanted to pursue this dream. So to answer your question, it's about pursuing a dream. If you do not, you just want to break it. If you know what you don't want, but you don't know what you want. And this is where, when I talk to people, say, oh, I'm not happy where I am, but do you know what you want to be? You know, what is it? I mean, it doesn't have to be specific that I want this kind of job, but you must have a sense of purpose. You must know what is it that you want, at least the lifestyle that you want. And if you want to make any big decision, because that was a big decision, right? But you must have your true north. So understand your true north, because when you have your true north, every fork of the road becomes so easy. It doesn't become any major decision anymore. It was just a decision towards a true north. And that was how I believe I could have made that decision, because I had that true north. As unelegant and as unprofound the true north was, which is 3 white phones and a briefcase, but it was still my true north. I was 21. Hey, I had that true north, and I also had the true north of having financial stability to support my parents, support my family. So with those two, I said, okay, I can do it. I just got to commit to it. And a lot of people, again, made that decision and commit to it. I made it and I commit with it. So no matter how tough it was, no matter how much I fell, and there've been many times where I fell, I had to pick myself up, because that was a decision that I made.
Awesome. So it looks like you're back into education. So now you're the chair of Heriot-Watt University Malaysia Board. So let's talk about this job currently that you have now. So what attracted you to be a part of the university and the education industry?
So after I was headhunted to go into government. So I was the I was the CEO for Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation. That was 4.5 years of national service. So so then I decided to retire, or semi-retire, and take on non-executive positions and just pursue what I want to do. So now I sit on boards, and I do a lot of I do some investments into technology companies. I'm also chair of an AI company, but it's not a job to me, So this like with Heriot-Watt, it is my passion. It is my cause, and I've always started with education, because my parents were teachers. I had a scholarship in education, supposed to be a teacher, but I decided to pursue my 3 white phones. So I didn't become. I've always had this passion. My parents were grounded with leadership with developing young talent. And I've always, in all of my career, whenever I join multinationals, I've always had, the first thing I do is say, okay, what is our program around education? What is our program around empowering young people? So I believe our future is always hinging on, it's always the foundation is always our young people. And when I was first approached by our provost Mushtaq, and I look at what Heriot-Watt stands for, our 200-year-old heritage from Scotland, some of the best academic program, and two critical things that I was so enamored by, and I believe in it so much, and it's so aligned with my cause about developing young people for the future, young talents or young leaders of the future. Number one is that we are truly multinational university. Do you know that in Heriot-Watt, our students can actually take one semester in Malaysia and then can decide to go and do 2 semesters in UK and finish it all off in Dubai campus. And seamlessly, you don't have to decide it from the beginning. You can decide it, as and when you go. So that is truly a global. And I believe that the future leaders, you got to have the global perspective, because the world is global. You can never just be in your little, so the global exposure and perspective is so critical. That's number one. Number two is that we are anchored on what in the academic world is called positive education, but what I call is a purpose-led leadership. Purpose-driven leadership. What it means is that when our students come in, we will teach them, to be the best actuarial scientist, the best computer scientist, the best marketing or business person. But at the same time, embedded into our curriculum is also this 4-year program that looks into developing you as a person, finding your purpose in life, and being able to nurture on how you will be pursuing that. And as you go through it, I personally coach. I'm an impact coach. It's called an impact, impact. It's called an Empower program. I coach 10 kids, and these are kids at that age, and we help them understand who they are, understand what is their purpose in life. And I can see, as a mother of a young boy, I can see sometimes these boys, sometimes they just go around life and not knowing what to do, and being a bit of a rebel sometimes, right? But once you in a world that is so full of destruction and that is so full of chaos, sometimes young souls and minds need to be anchored with a purpose. And once you anchor them with a purpose, then you unleash all of their full potential. And because Heriot-Watt is so committed to this, and I truly believe that this is the way forward. Global exposure and purpose-led leadership. So that's why I'm proud to be the chair of Heriot-Watt in Malaysia, the board practice in Malaysia, and I'm very much committed towards this Empower program that Heriot-Watt has. Sorry, I can talk on and on about Heriot-Watt because it's such a gem.
No worries. Yes, it is. So, all right, that is all the time that we have for today. We have just been speaking to the chair of Heriot-Watt University Malaysia, Yasmin Mahmood. Thank you, Yasmin, for joining us today.
My pleasure, June. It's my pleasure. And I hope everything's fine in Sydney. I miss Sydney.
Oh, yes, I hope to see you soon then. Thank you. The pleasure is all ours. Be sure to join us the next time as we interview another interesting individual around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.